Hello, this is Dave Hurwitz, Executive Editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with another Abbado cube, this time his legacy with the Vienna Philharmonic as opposed to the Berlin Philharmonic. And we're going to go through the whole box. Yes, indeed, all 58 CDs, not necessarily individually, and because they're printed on the back here, can you read that? It's very tiny. I have my magnifying glass here so we can see what's there, and hopefully that will allow us to figure out this whole business, because this is so strange. All right, we'll get to that in a moment. As you know, our verdict on the Berlin box was that Abbado was wildly inconsistent. He had some stuff that was terrific and quite a bit that really just sucked. And it was kind of shocking given the fact that he remade the Berlin Philharmonic in his image and had no excuse for that, did he? Well, the Vienna box is also wildly inconsistent. Maybe for a different reason, because the Vienna Philharmonic will always be the Vienna Philharmonic, irrespective of who you are, or who you think you are, and what you think you're going to do to them. But it's very interesting to note that the Vienna Philharmonic can be made to play superlatively in music that isn't necessarily congenial to them. For example, Dochnany's recordings of Bartók and Stravinsky and Charles Mackerras's recordings of Janáček, I mean, they don't even sound like the Vienna Philharmonic in some ways, because those conductors get them to play in such an idiomatic and different way stylistically. Abbado doesn't. Let's be clear about that. And I think that may be part of the problem. It may have been it wasn't his nature or his personality. I don't think there was an Abbado sound or an Abbado style. You know, there isn't anything you can tell if you listen to his Berlin versus his Vienna recordings that would say, this is an Abbado performance. One place where you might be able to hear it is in his London Symphony recordings. But of course, Deutsche Grammophon seems in no hurry to issue a box of those, which of course means that is his best body of work, right? The one they don't issue. So let's talk about the one they do and see what's on it. First, what we get here, let me get the magnifying glasses on here, little light thing. Okay, lots of Beethoven. Oh my goodness, Beethoven. A Beethoven cycle with the Choral Fantasy and other versions of Symphony 7 and 8. You know, the ones he did for Decca? That stuff's in here too. I'm sorry, I keep covering him up. That's in there too. And it looks like, let's see, there's a bunch of overtures which were issued separately. And that's Beethoven. It's 9 discs worth. Well, that's kind of a shame, because Beethoven is not his forte. Never was, never will be. And the reason is because Abbado is a micromanager. He is a fuss budget. He needs stuff to tinker with. Beethoven was a line guy. The long line, shape, architecture, details, sometimes subdued, to the advantage of the larger picture. Abbado never has a larger picture. Not really with anything, to be honest. He doesn't seem to get these large classical structures. That's why he was such a lousy Mozart conductor, too, in those symphonies, no matter when he did them. The only way he was able to succeed in Beethoven, and he did succeed in his way, it was in that last Berlin cycle. Remember, he did this cycle, and this cycle, it's basically the Vienna Beethoven with someone fussing. That's what it sounds like. It's Vienna Philharmonic plays Beethoven, and every so often there's a weird diminuendo or a Luftpause or a something that tells you that Abbado's there messing around and they're not happy. That's basically Abbado's Beethoven. But in Berlin, remember, he made a new cycle where he reduced the orchestra to like chamber-like proportions and tried to impose a real concept on the music. And the first effort was boring, and he withdrew it. He knew that. He knew it was terrible. And then they released the soundtracks of the other Beethovens that he did live, and they were much better. Now the question is, why were they much better? They were much better because, first of all, it was live. And so there had to be a degree of spontaneity. And second of all, because aside from the ninth, reducing them all to sort of chamber music proportions gave him the ability to create balances and tinker and play in ways that didn't impede the flow of the music the way it did when he was tinkering with larger ensembles who had their own way of doing it. You know what I mean? It allowed him to impose his will, in other words. And so that second time around, it was successful because it was A, spontaneous, and B, he could manage it more in his way. And so fine, I give him credit for that Beethoven cycle. This one's nothing special. And so we can move on and disregard the first 9 CDs of the box. Next, Alban Berg. 7 early songs. Der Wein, the 3 pieces for orchestra, the Altenburg Lieder, the 3 pieces from the Lyric Suite, and the Lulu Suite. They're terrific. Excellent, 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 excellent. You know, one of the reasons they're so good, just see who's singing here. Does it tell us? I think it does. Yes, Anne-Sophie von Otter. One of the reasons it's so good is because Berg is too complicated for Abbado to control. There's just too much going on. There's no way you're going to micromanage the Berg 3 pieces for orchestra. It just isn't going to happen. So he doesn't try. He keeps it together, he lets it happen, and it happens. And it sounds absolutely great. He also did Wozzeck, which is first rate for much the same reason, and the fact that Abbado was a wonderful opera accompanist, always was. And, you know, when you're accompanying, you're not, you know, you can do whatever you want because the singers are the people who matter. So his Wozzeck is terrific. Then we get Brahms, a first symphony, second piano concerto with Pollini, and the Hungarian dances. They're all very good. I mean, his Brahms in Berlin was probably the best thing he ever did. He does Brahms well. Brahms is a composer who wants sometimes to be micromanaged. He was as fussy as Abbado was. So, you know, it's a meeting of minds there. You know what I mean? And then we get Bruckner. Oh, 2 number 1s, which Abbado always did well, although his early Decca one with the Vienna Philharmonic has a wonderful freshness and spontaneity. It's a great Bruckner one. It's probably my reference recording of it. It's just wonderful. And then he did, as we know, a decent 4, I think a fabulous 5, a good 7th, a horrible 9th, and 1 again, which was okay. The 9th is just bleh. But, you know, it's one of those, it just falls apart, and it's badly recorded, too. But the others are all pretty good. They really are. So, and the 5 is fabulous, and the early 1 is fabulous, so good enough. Next, Debussy, Pelléas et Mélisande, the complete opera. It is superbe, absolument superbe. Abbado is perfect for that opera. Everything in that opera is mezzo something. If you want to know the difference between mezzo forte and mezzo piano, Abbado's your guy. He revels in the fact that it's all shades and half tints and little adjustments and things like that because the music was made to have that done to it. And it's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful Pelléas. Very well sung. It's an excellent cast, too. What is it? Maria Ewing and Francois Leroux and Joseph Van Damme. And, I mean, nothing not to love. It's a great Pelléas. Now we come to Mahler. Mahler. All right. Symphony number 10, Adagio. Who cares? Numbers 2 and 3, 4 and 9. All bad. Forget about all of them. They're not bad. They're just not good bad. You know what I mean? They're very average. They succumb to Abbado's need to tinker because Mahler should be played like Berg. There is just too much going on to mess with tiny little details at the expense of the big picture. Someone never told Abbado that. He never got the message. The only one of these performances that really deserved a second listen was number 4. Back in the day, it's an analog recording, but when it was transferred to CD, it sounded awful. It was just sounded like this multi-mic'd nightmare. It was such a shame because on LP it sounded great. It was one of the preferred Mahler 4s in its day, but now I couldn't say so. It really sounds unpleasant. And the other ones, I mean, 2 is probably slightly better than 3. The 9 is simply a non-happening. It's absolutely, you know, the 9th, I saw him do the Ninth live. You know, he spent the whole concert, the entire concert, staring at the second violins. That's it. He conducted the second violins. It was the best performance of the second violin part you'll ever hear in your life. The rest of the orchestra, nothing going on, because he wants to control. I mean, you see this so often. He wants to control it all, so he doesn't let them play unless he's looking at them, and then he doesn't look at them, and so they don't play. I mean, it's so, if you see him live do these works, it's so obvious what's happening and what isn't happening and what's missing from what he's doing and working with the orchestra. It's fascinating. It's okay. Mozart. All right. The piano concertos, it's, let's see, which one's here? 14, 26, 20, 21, 25, 27 with Gulda. Now, those are, Pyrrhus is in 14 and 26. Yes, Marie-Joëlle Pyrrhus. And Gulda is in 20, 21, 25, and 27. I like these. Again, he's accompanying. He can't mess it up too much. And I like Gulda. I mean, Gulda, I just think is a character. He's one of those guys. Some people don't like these performances. I think they have a lot of personality. They're a little odd in places, but they're okay. Pyrrhus is always shapely and lovely, and Abbado doesn't get in her way. Then there's Mozart's Mrs. Solemnis, the early, what's it called here? The Waisenhaus. I don't know who Waisenhaus was, but it's there. It's completely uninteresting. And The Marriage of Figaro with Scovis, Cheryl Studer, Sylvia McNair, Cecilia Bartoli. Ooh. Oh, it's not a great Marriage of Figaro. Again, it's just, I don't know what it is with Abbado and Mozart, but they just didn't get along. They're like two relatives who have a kind of a dysfunctional relationship. They know that because they're related, they have to love each other and pretend to show up at weddings and funerals and bar mitzvahs, but they just don't get along. I mean, that's kind of Abbado and Mozart, in my view. But then there's Mussorgsky, Hovhanschina. Now that's a knockout. Remember, it's the one with Stravinsky's ending, in the last few pages there. And it's the greatest Hovhanschina ever recorded, probably there's the Gergiev, but it's a great performance, as his Boris Godunov was a great performance. There was something in that music, probably because it was incomplete and it was always orchestrated by other people. It needed special pleading. And there are some works that, they're charity cases, and conductors rise to the occasion. And Abbado rose to the occasion with Hovhanschina. Then we get Rossini, L'Italiana in Algerie. This is fabulous because it lists all the singers except the star, Agnes Balza. I mean, what's the point in that? But you also get, Rogero Raimondi, and, it's all right. Those are the two biggies. Here's the bottom line. Rossini and Abbado were made for each other because Rossini was every bit as much of a control freak as Abbado was. I mean, Rossini was such a control freak that he would specify the distance between the chairs of the players and how far their candle and music had to be from their seat. And he would insist on a completely uniform spacing. I mean, that was Rossini. That's why he gave up opera when he was 29, because he was going insane. He had to deal with, the existing circumstances of performance in Italy and France of that day. And it was making him crazy. It made him sick, literally, because, if you look at his scores, especially in the critical edition, I was talking to Philip Gossett, who was the great late Rossini scholar who, did these editions about Rossini's neuroses in notating. He would notate. The notation it's precise in ways that are just nuts. There's simultaneous articulation in the violins. You have different kinds of staccatos and different, and all of that was Baudelarized and, evened out in later editions, because nobody could believe that you could have simultaneous articulations going like that, and ever have the players do it. And of course they don't. 99% of this stuff you're not going to hear anyway, which is perfect for someone like Abbado because he could spend his whole life in rehearsal making sure that everyone does the articulation that Rossini wants in the critical edition and then making sure they're doing it. And you don't hear it at all. It doesn't make any difference. So he can't get in the way of the way the music's going. It's going to happen the way it's going to happen anyway. And he can amuse himself with fussing with these little minute details that are totally irrelevant to the actual sonic picture of the work. And that's how you make Claudio Abbado happy. After Rossini, we get Schoenberg, Gurlieder. Oh, that's not bad with, let's see, Siegfried Jerusalem and Sharon Suite. That was okay. That's another piece where there's only so much you can do. I mean, that's like Mahler's Eighth. You're just a traffic cop. You're not really doing anything because you can't. There's just too much there. Then we get Schubert, Symphonies numbers 5 and 8, and the Mass number 6. I have to confess, I had no recollection of these performances when I first played them. And hearing them now, I still have no recollection of having heard them. So there you are with Abbado and Schubert. Then there's 2 New Year's concerts. Does anybody care? No. Then Tchaikovsky 4, 6, both great, especially the 4th. One of the great Tchaikovsky 4s. It has beautiful nuances, but they work. They make sense. I remember particularly in the slow movement, you know, when that theme goes in da 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 ba 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 da da ba da 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 ba da da. You know that bit where Abbado, usually people make these sort of fulsome, yummy chords, and Abbado was very restrained, piano, strictly in keeping with the way it was written. I thought there was a mistake. You know, it isn't. And it's very, very sensitive. But he has an exciting first movement and an exciting finale, and he doesn't mess with them too much. And they're beautiful performances. The Pathetique, too, was very passionate, very sensitive. It's a very good performance. They were highly regarded when they came out, and they deserved to be. Also, is Tchaikovsky and Mendelssohn violin concertos with Milstein. I mean, that's their reference recordings for both works, plain and simple, because of Milstein. But Abbado is a wonderful accompanist in that music. Then we get the Verdi Requiem and 4 Sacred Pieces. This was his redemption after the gruesomely horrible one he did at La Scala a few years previously. I also like this performance. I think it's so much more effective than his other one. But then that one was so bad, maybe I overreact and like rooting for this one a little bit. I don't think it's necessarily one of the greatest, but I've always enjoyed it. And when I did my Verdi Requiem video, remember, I made a stack of best Requiems. I put this one in there because I just think it was a very, very sensitive but also exciting performance, and it's come out really well. Finally, Wagner, Lohengrin. I think it's just boring. I'm sorry. It's just boring. I mean, I think Lohengrin is boring anyway, but this is with Siegfried Jerusalem and Karl Moll, Cheryl Studer, you know, Waltraud Meyer, all those people. The singing is okay. It's not, you know, insanely wonderful. And the performance itself is... Then we get a Webern and Schoenberg disc. Webern Orchestral Works in Schoenberg, a survivor from Warsaw. Very, very good. Extremely good. Just like his Berg, you know. They encourage you to spend so much time on details that most of which will not be noticed. So they play very well. And then there's a disc called Wien Modern. Works by Wolfgang Riem, Ligeti, Nono, and Boulez. What do you think? Who cares? I mean, I'm sure they're fine. Absolutely. How often are you going to listen to it? You know, I mean, Ligeti is a great composer. That's not true. Ligeti is a great composer. In fact, let's take a look at the bookie here. Booklet. I'm looking at the booklet. Oh, I can't get the booklet out the goddamn box because these things are jammed in. You know, they make one size box and they don't really care how many CDs they have to put in them. There we go. Here's the box. Let's take a look and see what's in there. I haven't listened to that disc probably since it came out, but I did listen to it in the day. I mean, I did, honestly and truly. And it was not... let's see. Oh, Kurt Moll. I'm sorry, not Karl Moll. What was I saying? In Lohengrin, it's Kurt Moll. Sorry, Kurt. Okay, here we go. Luigi Nono's Liebeslied. Boulez's, they're just 4 of the notations. Numbers 1, 4, 3, and 2 in that order. And, those are completely uninteresting. Wolfgang Riem's Départ for mixed chorus, speaking chorus, and 22 players after a text to Rimbaud. Oh, I remember that. Sure. I remember it. That's the problem. Oh, God. But then you get Ligeti's Atmospheres and Lontano, both of which are wonderful. So actually, it's Wien and it's modern. And that's really all we need to know, isn't it? So there you have it, your Abbado box. And probably 50% of it is junk. Sorry to say. And I guess that's why he went to Berlin. I don't know. I don't know what it is with this guy. The London Symphony recordings are his great ones. I want to be totally unambiguous about that. His best recordings were made with the LSO, Deutsche Grammophon. Get off your lazy German asses and issue the LSO stuff in a box. Then I can rave about most of it, except for the Mozart symphonies. I had a couple things. But basically, I can rave about most of it because that is Abbado at his best. The rest of this stuff is a guy with a recording contract wasting our time half the time. I mean, it's great for Berg. It's great for a couple Bruckners. It's great for Rossini. It's great for Chovantschina. It's great for the modern stuff. There's some very good stuff. The Tchaikovsky 4 and 6, the Verdi Requiem. Okay, that's all estimable. But why would you want the rest of it? I don't think, in some respects, these boxes actually help the reputation of the artist because all they do is show just how inconsistent they were. There's some people where, like, you put all of Silvestri's stuff in a box and it's like, yes, you go from one disc to the next going, oh, God, this is so great. It's fabulous. That's not what's happening here. And I suspect there are people at DG who know that. When you do one of these boxes, I understand it's for people who, Abbado has his fans, especially in Italy. He's got legions of fans. Some people thought he could do no wrong. They will get the box, and it will make them happy. And I understand that. And they're entitled to their happiness. I wish them the joy of it. I really do. But it's just not top quality work, as often as not. So keep on listening, folks. Pray for the Abbado LSO box. Thank you, and if you enjoyed this talk, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. It's waiting for you.